Ichigo Kurosaki. He is a man of many hats. He is a soul reaper, a hollow, which makes him also a visored and also a fullbringer. He's a Quincy. And last but not least, he is human. Each of these different characteristics of Ichigo have the capabilities to bestow a different power. Soul Reapers have Zanpakutos, toes, which can manifest into a Bankai. Hollows can have the Seros, which are high powered attacks, and also can self heal. Visors are usually Soul Reapers who only use their Hollow traits to enhance their Soul Reaper traits, essentially giving them a different form of a Bankai. A Fullbringer is a human who is basically Hollow touched. They manifest their abilities quite differently to all the other races, and even Fullbringers don't even share the same abilities most of the time. They only have the same origin point. A Quincy has the ability to gather the reishi around the area and combine it with their own in order to make spiritual weapons. And they can also use it to enhance their own physical capabilities. Humans can have powers too. In Bleach, there are a category of humans called high spec humans that develop powers even without being part hollow or Quincy or part Shinigami. They're just regular people, but they were born a little bit different. Now, usually these powers only go all the way up to seeing souls, but there are rare occasions where these high-spec humans can actually lay out the hands. Now, Ichigo Kurosaki has all of this going for him. He is a true powerhouse. Some might say he has won the genetic lottery. However, I think none of these other racial powers mean much in comparison to his true power, the power that has been with him the entire series. Even when he repressed his powers or gained new ones, he still has this one that he can always depend on. This power is not only what allows him to fight foes who are hundreds of years older than him with way more combat experience, but it also allows him to defeat these foes. His power, to a degree, could be called adaptability, for he can do that very well, but I think it goes beyond that. I believe Ichigo is a true prodigy. Now, before we get any further into this, if you guys are new here and like my content, you guys can go down and, click the subscribe button. That'll help me out a lot. Also, hit the thumbs up. I very much appreciate it. Help a pal out. Now, with that out of the way, let's get back into Ichigo being a true prodigy. Well, I say that, but there's no real indication of him being true prodigy at the beginning of the series. Sure, he fights hollows and he can beat up grown men, but that whole beginning arc is really about him being the main character. It's really showcasing how he's built different. Or you can see that he gets into daily fights with his own dad, who is pretty good in his own right, and Ichigo has an asserted amount of spiritual pressure, which could tell us why he's so much stronger than most people and he could do special things. Really, us seeing that he's a prodigy is during the Soul Society arc, where he gets to fight against other Soul Reapers and gets, display his true talents and his true capabilities. We see it after when Ichigo's whole gang shows up in the Soul Society, and then they get split up, and Ichigo runs into Ikkaku, the third seat of the Squad 11. Ichigo and Ikkaku start to fight, and during it, Ikkaku notices that Ichigo is not just some kid who's just swinging a huge sword. He actually has some level of skill, pretty advanced level of skills actually. And this leads to Ikkaku asking, where did Ichigo learn to fight? For he can't be an amateur fighting like this, which Ichigo responds with saying that he learned all these things in pretty much 10 days, and he learned it from Uroha. Now, this right here, when Ichigo says that he's been trained to fight swordsmen in pretty much 10 days, is an impressive feat, like a huge one. And we do know the intense training that he had to do in order to show up here. However, we know that Ikkaku is no slouch. In fact, when it comes to fighting, he's pretty high up there in that regard. So in order to equal a master fighter like Ikkaku in just 10 days, that's beyond impressive. Moving forward with the fight, Ikkaku releases his Shikai, which is the second release of his Zanpakuto. And it's a very tricky Zanpakuto. See, it starts off as a pole arm, and then it can be split into 3 fragments, which greatly alter his fighting style. And it's all meant to confuse the opponent and get them on the back foot and, disorientate them. Yet Ichigo figures out how to combat against this very unusual form of fighting very quickly. And not only that, he wraps up the fight even faster. This, for me, was his first actual feat of being a prodigy, of showcasing that he's a better fighter, and he learns it faster than most people. And the thing about this is, it's consistent throughout the entire series. For you see it for the rest of this arc, Ichigo demonstrates his ability to excel at other tasks that it takes Soul Reapers years to learn, and Ichigo demonstrates that he can excel at all of these tasks in a very short time frame. He learns, like starting with Bankai, he learns that in pretty much only 3 days, which is a technique that takes people bare minimum 10 years to learn, and even some people don't even get that far with their Zanpakuto. Some people spend their entire Soul Reaper lives not even being able to release their Bankai, and they could be hundreds of years old because they're Soul Reapers. They age very slowly, if not at all. And then we also see where Ichigo learns Shunpo, which is a speed technique to move around super fast, pretty much blitz your opponent. Even having any mastery over this technique, sure, it's not maybe too hard to learn, but having mastery over this technique is a noteworthy feat all by itself across the Soul Society, which Ichigo, again, learns relatively fast. And not only does he learn Shunpo and Bankai, which are pretty much advanced techniques for all the Soul Reapers, but he learns it while beating a bunch of captains. That in and of itself is a whole nother feat, for these captains are all veteran warriors. All of them are masters of their own blades. They spent years upon years upon years learning how to do what they do, and yet Ichigo, a 15-year-old boy, is not only showcasing that he is better than them, but he can get better than them faster. Then we get into the Arrancar arc, where Ichigo learns how to pretty much holofy himself, and it's a technique from the Vizards that spent quite a while doing this, for they've been gone for about 100 years, and they're teaching Ichigo, and Ichigo learns it in relatively short order. In fact, the only reason that he has any trouble with it is mostly due to his own unwillingness to truly get to know his hollow. That's the only thing giving him a hang up. Similar to how Jiraiya Kenpachi subconsciously suppresses himself, it's all a mental game. Ichigo could be great at holofying, he could be great at using his Bankai, he could be great at doing all these other things, maybe never having his spiritual pressure fluctuate, but he gets caught up in his own head a lot. Ichigo's power to be able to rise to any occasion helps him in every fight that he's ever been in. For every enemy that he fights, he matches them, and then he uses his experiences from all the enemies before him to overcome his current enemy. And the fight with Grimmjow is a perfect representation of this. The whole fight with Grimmjow is Grimmjow throwing complex attacks Ichigo's way, unorthodox moves that Ichigo really hasn't ever really fought against, and yet Ichigo is sticking with him. It is at this point that, in the intensity of the fight, people who have been watching this entire fight from the sidelines makes a comment about how Ichigo is fighting just like them, as if this is a fight between two Espadas, not a Shimigami and an Espada. It was at this moment right here, solidified for me, that Ichigo was a true prodigy, a one of a kind, and I believe that this power of Ichigo's is the greatest power that he can ever hold.